Welcome to another episode of The FWOT Show. I'm your host, Rob Steele, and boy, do we have a lot of stupidity to get to this week. Seriously. So, let's start off with Donald Trump going to the United Kingdom. Well, he thinks he's going to go address Parliament. Parliament, which for those of you who don't know is the United Kingdom government, they said, why no? No, he's not going to be talking to us. We thought it was a bad idea for him to talk to us before the ban on travel that he put up. Now we think it's an even worse idea. Spectacular. Oh, by the way, did you notice when the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Theresa May, she came over a while back and had a nice talk with the president? And there was part of her visit where she took a walk with him outside the White House and he held her hand the whole time. Now, the reason he claims he did this is because he has a fear of slopes. Really? I'm sure Korea's going to love that. Honestly, I wouldn't have known about that term if it weren't for Jeremy Clarkson, but I digress. You know what? They were walking on a fairly flat surface at the time. And if he really had a fear of slopes, would he have actually entered that press conference on an escalator, which is a slope? I'm not sure he knows what a slope is, because if he actually does have this fear of slopes, why does he keep putting himself on such a slippery one? Speaking of the whole, we're going to ban people from coming into this country unless they are American-born and apparently Christian. They have to be both. You can't be a Muslim American and come back into this country when this ban is going on. Why? Do you need proof of that? How about a man by the name of Sid Bakanavar? He's a U.S.-born Muslim. He happened to go on a trip to South America when the ban was instituted. That's where he races solar-powered cars. He's actually a very big scientist in this whole alternative energy thing. They wouldn't let him back in the country because he's a Muslim. American citizen, but, wrong religion. Really? Really? Is that the way you want to do it? You want another one? Because, it's just one isolated incident. You want someone else? How about Ibtihaj Muhammad? I know, it's a Muslim name. Oh no, it's a Muslim coming into the country, even though she just won a bronze medal for the U.S. in the 2016 Olympics. Hello? Oh no, we can't have her come in because she's a Muslim, even though she was born in this country and has every right to come here. But no. The ban was put in place. Well, you know what? A federal judge, or 17 or 30 or fucking all of them, decided to overturn the ban. It's not there anymore. You know why? Because it's a bad idea. Well, you know that, and the Constitution, which is what the country is based on, says it's a bad idea. You catching a theme for this show? It's even a very anti-Christian attitude. Do unto others. Do you remember that bit? It's in the Bible, actually a few times. No, can't have that. Ooh, Muslim can't have... Really? Really? But of course, this whole Republican thing has gone a little bit too far. The Republican takeover just this past week eliminated a federal agency that makes sure that voting machines can't be hacked. Let's see if we follow this. This is a group of people who are screaming at the top of their lungs that the election is rigged. That they won, by the way. The election they won is rigged. And just to make sure that, I guess we can't tell that it's rigged, they're getting rid of the people who make sure that it can't be rigged or hacked or disturbed in any way. Does this make any sense to anyone? But if making up things about the election isn't enough, how about all these terrorist attacks? Because it's not just Bowling Green anymore. There was a list that Sean Spicer came out with last week where he talked about the San Bernardino attack. Yeah, okay, Muslims, but they're from America, so I don't see the ban issue going up there. That doesn't make sense. The attack in Boston by those white guys, and the attack in Atlanta. You remember the attack in Atlanta? Yeah, I don't either, because I don't think there was one. But don't take my word for it. How about taking the word of Shepard Smith from Fox News?
In short, the president's assertion is false. The White House knows that it was false or could have learned that it was false with a quick Google check, but either did not do so or decided not to tell the truth. Regarding the entire White House list of 78 attacks, Fox News properties covered all of the major ones and at least 79% of all mentioned.
But of course, this doesn't preclude the House of Representatives, namely Representative Sean Duffy, from coming out and defending the ban, saying, "We must stop the people from the Middle East. But what about the white terrorists, Sean? What about them? Oh, those are completely different. We must stop the brown terrorists." No. A terrorist is a terrorist is a terrorist. Period. That's the way it goes. But you know what? We're not just attacking people who may or may not be terrorists. And in this case, they're not. How about attacking disabled people? Yeah. Did you know that's happening? There was a big section of the White House website and the Department of Education's website having to deal with disabled children and how to deal with disabled children. It happens. I don't like it to happen. It just does. Those sections of the websites, they're gone now. Why? Because we have a new Secretary of Education. Her name is Betsy DeVos. And you know what? That is awfully suspiciously like Davros. DeVos? Davros? It's very similar. Who is Davros? He is the biggest bad guy in the history of the Doctor Who series. That just doesn't set right. And I know I'm being prejudicial based on her name. But you know what? It might not even be just me. There's a guy by the name of Thomas Massey who introduced a bill called H.R. 899. And the bill is to abolish the Federal Department of Education. Let me read this bill to you. It reads, "In its entirety, the Department of Education shall terminate on December 31st, 2018. That's it. I suppose that's one way to keep DeVos from being the Secretary of Education. But, really? That's taking it a bit far. And he's a Republican. Isn't he on her side? I don't understand this. Makes no sense at all whatsoever. But the reason I think I'm getting started on the whole DeVos thing, she scares me. I mean, she's not qualified in the slightest. Let's start with her first tweet. Isn't this sad that we're reduced to, judging people based on their tweets? Her first tweet is, "Well, day one on the job is done, but we're only getting started. Now, where do I find the pencils?" Bitch, you work for the Department of Education. Teachers in this country supply their own materials. The pencils are at the store. Go get them. Daft bitch. But no, that's not it. She also had a comment for Black History Month. "Education must not simply teach work, it must teach life." That's a quote from W.E.B. Du Bois. It's actually Dubois, but she misspelled his name. That, in and of itself, might not be such a bad thing, because, typos happen, even though it's not D.E. Bois, it's D.U. Bois, because, the E and the U are only separated by 3 letters on a keyboard. However, that wasn't it. She also apologized for the typo earlier. Yeah, apologized. I pronounce it that way because that's how she spelled it. She's correcting a typo with a typo. This is your Secretary of Education. Now, somebody popped up in the middle of this that I didn't quite understand the reason for her reappearance on the scene at this time. Jill Stein. You remember her? One of the big independent people? I'm going to be running for president, and kind of screwed up the system a bit, I think. But she popped up again and said that DeVos was voted in because, quote, "Democrats serve corporate interests." Now, for those of you who followed the election of DeVos, you probably noticed a pattern. And the pattern was every single Democrat voted against her. See, a pattern. All of them voted against her. But, I guess Democrats could serve corporate interests, like, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. They'd like to keep that going, even though, other people don't seem to be that interested in it like the Republicans, which doesn't make any sense. That's where a lot of children learn a lot of things. It's a good idea to keep open. It's a good place to learn things like your numbers and calendars. Calendars are a very important thing. Although Donald Trump doesn't seem to have learned his calendar because earlier this week and I hate saying this, he tweeted It is a disgrace that my full cabinet is not in place. The longest such delay in the history of our country. Obstruction by Democrats. Yeah, okay, wah. And let's follow this up with, he tweeted this on February 7th. This is actually completely false, because if you look back at some of the previous presidents, let's say, I don't know, Bill Clinton didn't have his in place until March 11th. George H.W. Bush, the first one, the good one, March 17th. Obama didn't have his until April 28th. And you're whining about not having it on February 7th. Bitch, shut up. Seriously. But he makes these things up, and his followers believe him. And I found this wonderful quote this week from TV personality Andy Daly, who said, quote, I think Trump could tell his supporters he already built the wall, and they'd believe him. Much cheaper that way, actually. And I agree. I think that might actually work. Let's see if we can get him to give it a shot. But Rob, we need to keep out those immigrants because they're going to be really horrible and terrorists and kill people in the States and whiny stuff. See, no. A lot of people are having trouble with the Muslim concept because it's a religion from the Middle East, and those Middle East religions are dangerous, man. Well, you're thinking of Islam, but I think you're forgetting the most dangerous religion of all. The one that conquered, raped, and pillaged its way across Europe and even the United States. Because I think a lot of people forget Christianity is from the Middle East as well. Oops. But that's okay. Donald Trump has a way of confusing a lot of people. I mean, he's even confused his own party. I mean, Rafael Cruz, you know who I'm talking about, said that the Democrats are the party of the KKK. I'm not sure he knows what party he's even in anymore, because every member of the KKK voted for Trump. That was one of the big things that came out in the news. One of the reasons that people said, we really shouldn't vote for this guy. By the way, hey, Raph, you do remember that your parents were refugee immigrants, right? Or have you forgotten that part? It's part of your history. We don't need to learn your history, but you should know your own. Just a thought. So in conclusion to this section of the show, I've come up with what I think is the best description of Donald Trump. Donald Trump, I think, is a rapist with erectile dysfunction. This is an analogy. I don't mean that literally, although there is the rape charge against him from when he banged the 14-year-old girl repeatedly. Yes, Donald Trump, I think, is a rapist with erectile dysfunction because he's made a bad career choice. He's not equipped to do the job, but he is still capable of causing a lot of damage, both psychological and physical. And now, amusing protest news. I absolutely loved this. There was supposed to be a very large anti-abortion protest outside Planned Parenthood in St. Paul, Minnesota. Somewhere around 500 anti-abortion activists got together and said, no, bad idea, and they started to march on Planned Parenthood when they were met by about 5,500 pro-choice counter-protesters. Isn't that wonderful? There's footage of this. Go look it up. Don't take my word for it. Absolutely beautiful. And now on to a bit of tech news, because it's my show and I can do what I want, so there. For those of you who are still on Verizon, there is now an honest alternative that's half the price. And you've heard of it. It's called T-Mobile. Now, this is not an ad for T-Mobile. This is actually a news story, because earlier this week it came out through the media that there have been tests on the 4 major cell phone providers, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, and AT&T. Verizon and T-Mobile are essentially tied atop this leaderboard of who has the best service. Here's the catch. T-Mobile is almost always half the price with unlimited data, talk, and text, as opposed to Verizon, which limits your data, limits your talk, and limits your text. Why exactly would anyone pay more for less? Just asking. While we're at it, I'm going to ask this because this is one I do not understand. Windows 10 is supposed to have a big visual upgrade sometime this year, and leaked photos of what it will look like are out. and I've seen them. And as a tech guy, I have to say, changing the color of the start bar is something we can already do. The only thing I saw that looked different than a regular Windows 10 computer was that someone had actually opened Microsoft Groove to play an MP3 instead of using an MP3 player that works logically. I'm not sure that counts as a visual improvement. Do you agree? Disagree? Do you have a better idea of what they're talking about? Because that's all I've seen. Contact me through the website, thefwotshow.com. There's buttons for Facebook and Twitter. I think the email button is still there. Don't forget to tell your friends about the show because it's fun and you did learn something. I'm not sure which part of it you learned because I don't know what you knew before, but you learned something during the show. And of course, I would like to thank Jesus Jones for the spectacular theme song. I really like it. It's a fun song. I enjoy it most thoroughly. Even the version with the lyrics, which I'll see if I can put on the website someday. Just, to promote the band, because it's a good band. New album forthcoming. In the meantime, I would like all of you who are listening to the show to be careful out there, because it's still really damn weird.